Good afternoon. I'm Dan DeRose coming to you from our digital studio here in the Cleveland 19 newsroom. We're going to bring you a news conference regarding that terribly tragic situation that happened in March of this past year. We're talking about the Embryo case from the university hospitals. This, you'll remember, happened in March of 2018 when a nitrogen tank, or a tank that holds the embryos, was supposed to be filled with liquid nitrogen to keep those embryos frozen and viable. There was a malfunction in that tank, and we were just notified this morning that the university hospitals has a major announcement that they're going to be making from their attorney's office. You can see that's the shot that we have there. While we wait for this news conference to start, I want to bring you the story from Sarah Goldenberg. She did a story with one of the families that was impacted by this that'll really walk you through sort of the hardship of the people who lost the embryos, who were maybe for medical reasons or time reasons, they were waiting for a later time to have another child. So let's take a listen to this story and we'll bring you the news conference just as soon as it begins.
Behind this smiling face is a long journey for Amber and Elliot Ash. Ethan is 2.5 years old, born after 2 rounds of IVF. These pictures in his baby album document that. They hope to give him a sibling soon.
Just to have these embryos that for us we consider to be our children taken away, and as a parent to them and as a mother to them, I assumed they were in the safest place, and that clearly did not hold true.
This letter from UH brought them more answers, but left them with a lot of questions and a lot of pain.
We want to move on and get past this, but we keep being reminded that we did lose our only chances there.
UH says someone turned off the alarm on the tank where the embryos and eggs were kept.
Because when that alarm was turned off, they lost their voice. That alarm was their voice.
Before that, employees manually poured liquid nitrogen into the tank, which needed preventative maintenance. Officials say the levels were being monitored, but they're investigating whether that led to a rise in temperature.
We hope for policy change. We want to make sure this doesn't happen anywhere in the industry again. There's no reason for an alarm to be shut off and no one notified about it.
The Ashes want better safeguards across the fertility industry. That's why they're speaking up, and that's why they filed a class action lawsuit.
These were lives. These were cells that showed great potential, and now the potential of these embryos will never be known.
And again, want to clarify, this news conference that's being held is from the attorneys that are a part of that class action lawsuit representing hundreds of families. Again, we're talking about 4,000 embryos that were lost, eggs and embryos, for at least 950 individuals. So this was a major story. University hospitals put out a number of statements. They tried to be as transparent as possible to explain what happened. The one thing they were never able to determine was who was the individual who shut off that alarm. That alarm should have gone off when the tank started to warm, when it was getting to certain temperatures that would destroy the embryos. Someone at some point turned off that alarm. We had heard several times from UH that tank was malfunctioning on a couple of different levels, and they were actually in the process of replacing that. We've got Denise Arella, as you can see, is there. Denise, what are we expecting to hear? What have you been told so far?
Wait till we get the microphone in front of them before they actually say what they want to say.
Yeah, I wanted to just give you an update. I was listening to you talk a little bit earlier, so I stepped in front of the camera and let you know we are expecting everyone to arrive in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
We're having
expecting
microphone
attorneys and also 2 couples.
We can't hear your microphone.
Okay. We're having some audio issues. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
While we do that, again, I'm going to show you some of the
come back to
video, the problem as we get that audio situation worked out. Let's walk you through again exactly how this happened. This was a tank at one of the UH facilities that was having a malfunction. It had a problem. They knew that the tank had been malfunctioning, so they had been physically putting in the liquid nitrogen into the tank. Instead of having a situation where it was doing it automatically, staff was having to put that in. The next malfunction on the tank was the alarm that should have gone off when the tank temperature started to rise, started to get too warm for the embryos and eggs that were inside. Now, when that situation happens, obviously it's dangerous to the embryos and the eggs that are in there. It makes them not viable. It can destroy the embryos, and that's exactly what happened. The alarm was turned off by some individual at some point that they were never able to determine. And that's what destroyed the eggs and the embryos. We are waiting on this news conference from the attorneys that are handling the class action lawsuit. I'm going to bring in Denise Rella, see if we've got your microphone fixed there. Denise,
Are you able to hear me now, Dan?
Oh, I've got you perfectly clear now. Denise, walk us through what you think or what you've been told is going to be discussed today.
You know what, we don't know. All that we know is that there is going to be some kind of major announcement in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We're expecting the attorneys representing 2 different couples who lost embryos at UH to be up here at this table, to be a part of this major announcement. And of course, we're going to be live streaming this, so everybody who's watching will of course hear it first. So we really don't have any indication of exactly what this major announcement is. We of course can't speculate, but we are on standby and we're expecting these people to walk in any minute now.
Denise, you've covered the story as I have. The heartbreak for the families that for whatever reason, there are a number of reasons that people would have had the UH put their embryos in this kind of storage. The heartbreak from families is really tough to hear that lost the embryos.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very heartbreaking. And there's a lot of different stories that have come out of this particular situation here that of course, we've all heard of. Some couples that were maybe on their last chance of maybe having a child through this particular process. So there's some really heartbreaking stories that we've all heard. It's just a terrible situation, and of course this would be a new development today. I've already reached out to UH to give them the heads up that there is this major announcement that's going to be made, so that we could also get a response from them as well.
So on that line, I'm assuming we haven't heard from UH as of today.
They're on standby, and they said they're not aware of what this announcement is about, so it's possible they may be watching this live streaming event as well.
That's interesting, the fact that they say they're not unaware of any kind of announcement. You would almost think that maybe there was a resolution to the class action lawsuit. If they're saying they don't know anything about it, then that would indicate that that's probably not the case. It's hard to say. We just can't speculate exactly what this is all about here, but I think everybody's just kind of anxious. We've got a lot of different media here, even people from the network that are here listening in on what this could possibly be. And to bring that up, that's a very good point. Networks are interested in this. This made national news. This is something that is not supposed to happen. This was, let's be frank, this was an embarrassment for UH to have this happen, because it is so devastating to those families that were looking for guidance on this.
It is.
The back is strong.
And how do you when you talk about the law and making people whole again, how do you ever replace couples' lost embryos? It's just something that's irreplaceable, and it's just this leaves me speechless.
And again, we're not talking just a couple of people here. This was 4,000 at least 4,000 embryos and eggs for 950 patients. That's a lot of people.
And as I heard you talking earlier, initially they had said 2,000 embryos and eggs, and they said 700 families, and then later we found out 4,000 embryos and 2,000 families. That's a whole lot of people that are affected by this situation. And of course, the hospital had extended their sincerest apologies for what had happened, but again, how do you make these families whole again? That's the big question.
And it was interesting to watch the UH from our perspective. We see different agencies handle things differently. The UH did try to get out in front of this. It didn't try to hide. It made the CEO available. They made the doctor in charge of the program available. but not to the media. What they did is with their own in-house media, they recorded a statement from the CEO. They recorded some conversations with the doctor in charge of the program to sort of explain publicly, here's what we know. So they did sort of try to get in front of it. They didn't necessarily put the CEO in front of our reporters and our questions, but they did put out some statements from time to time. Again, if you're just joining us, we're waiting on this news conference where Denise Orella is. This is at a law firm here that represents at least a few of the families involved in the class action lawsuit against UH. This was the Embryo crisis that happened back in March. UH had an embryo storage tank that developed a problem of some sort. They had come out publicly and said that the tank itself had a couple of different malfunctions. They knew the tank, it's supposed to be kept with liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen keeps the temperature low enough to help those eggs and embryos survive. What happened is there is a secondary tank that is supposed to continuously transfer in liquid nitrogen to the main tank. That wasn't happening, so they had been doing it manually. Staff had been manually putting in liquid nitrogen into that tank. Part of that process, again, another piece of the malfunction, is there was supposed to be an alarm on that tank that if the temperature started to rise, that would put in danger the embryos and eggs. That alarm should have gone off. It can be remotely triggered. That way, if it's overnight, if staff isn't in the room, that it could alert staff that the temperature is reaching a dangerous level. Someone turned off that alarm. The UH never made public. In fact, they said several times in their statements from the CEO and from the doctors that they were researching who turned off that alarm, but they never said publicly that they had come up with exactly who did that. Denise, you said there's some national media there. Can you fill us in on who that might be?
Yeah, we have somebody here from NBC that is covering this for the networks here. So yeah, this gained a whole lot of media attention. We have all of our local media people here. We have people from print media. I mean, this is just really a case that a lot of people have been watching very, very closely, and it's understandable why. I mean, this is a significant law. 4,000 embryos being lost is obviously extremely significant, and I'm not even sure if there's a precedent for it.
Yeah,
Are you, Dan?
in fact, Denise, while we wait for this news conference, if you're just joining us, I'm going to play the story again from Sarah Goldenberg, one of our reporters on the investigative team. She had actually been able to sit down with one of the families that lost the embryos, and you're going to hear from them what this impact and the impact of their lives, what it's done to them, and the process they've gone through. So let's take a look at this story, and if the news conference starts, we'll get you to that. Take a listen.
Behind this smiling face is a long journey for Amber and Elliot Ash. Ethan is 2.5 years old, born after 2 rounds of IVF. These pictures in his baby album document that. They hope to give him a sibling soon.
Just to have these embryos that for us we consider to be our children taken away, and as a parent to them and as a mother to them, I assumed they were in the safest place, and that clearly did not hold true.
This letter from UH brought them more answers, but left them with a lot of questions and a lot of pain.
We want to move on and get past this, but we keep being reminded that we did lose our only chances there.
UH says someone turned off the alarm on the tank where the embryos and eggs were kept.
Because when that alarm was turned off, they lost their voice. That alarm was their voice.
Before that, employees manually poured liquid nitrogen into the tank, which needed preventative maintenance. Officials say the levels were being monitored, but they're investigating whether that led to a rise in temperature.
We hope for policy change. We want to make sure this doesn't happen anywhere in the industry again. There's no reason for an alarm to be shut off and no one notified about it.
The Ashes want better safeguards across the fertility industry. That's why they're speaking up, and that's why they filed a class action lawsuit.
These were lives. These were cells that showed great potential, and now the potential of these embryos will never be known.
And that is Sarah Goldenberg reporting, as she did a few months ago. This has really been the first movement in this case, as we were notified that there would be a major announcement, according to this law firm in downtown Cleveland, that a major announcement in the Embryo case. It really has gone quiet since about July, when the UH put out its last statement and where they were and the class action lawsuits had began. We're waiting for this news conference in downtown Cleveland from the law firm that represents at least a few of the families in the class action lawsuit. We heard Denise Arella earlier say that they even expect some of the families to be there at this news conference. It was supposed to start at noon. We're running about 15 minutes behind, but that happens. If Denise is still there, I'm going to bring her back in so that people can get some perspective on
I was
this.
just checking to see when people may be arriving.
Sure. Do we know, are we getting
Yeah,
close?
In fact, one of the people from the law firm has just stepped out to go check to see where everybody is. But we are expecting this to definitely start in the next 10 to 15 minutes here. We are expecting attorneys from the law firm of Peiffer, Wolf, Carr, and Kane, and DiCello Levitt to be here to speak about a new development in their case, the case against UH. Relate to the 4,000 embryos that were destroyed at UH Hospital's fertility clinic. And it looks like we have one of the attorneys walking in right now. So I'm going to get out of the way as everybody kind of takes to the table here and begins to make their announcements.
Denise, thank you for your perspective. We've got the attorneys filing in.
Joe Peiffer with Peiffer, Wolf, Carr, and Kane. I will be joined up here with my partner Adam Wolf and with Bobby DiCello from the DiCello Levitt law firm. You'll also be hearing from some victims this evening, or this afternoon, I suppose. And those folks are Joe and Kim Buchar of Geauga County, and Matt and Emily Petit.
Can you spell those, please?
I can. Joe is just Joe. Kim is Kim, K-I-M. Buchar is B-U-C-A-R. Matt, M-A-T-T. Emily, E-M-I-L-Y. Petit, just like it sounds, P-E-T-I-T-E.
They're both from Geauga County.
Joe and Kim are from Geauga County. The rest of the folks will be down here momentarily. I think everyone was just getting the last glass of water and heading down. So I left them at the elevator bank, so I expect them in here in about 60, 90 seconds. Okay. And I'll do another, redo the intro real fast. Then I'll turn it over to Adam, then Bobby, then the victims will be speaking.
Can you tell us where Matt and Emily Petit are from?
I can. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
And before you go, I'm sorry, you
Yes,
said
go
your
ahead.
name as Joe?
Peiffer, P-E-I-F-F-E-R.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Whoa! Here, it looks like everyone else is here.
Go on, guys, you're fine. Whatever you need to do. Where do you want them to sit, guys?
As you just heard from the individual there.
I think right over here is the best place. Is that good for you guys that are in the room?
Players are going to be
Great.
coming into the room. This is going to be an announcement from one of the attorneys representing
Bobby,
some of the families
how are
who
you?
lost their
Let's see if we can
embryos
center this.
in this
Why don't we center it
situation
over a little
from
more
UH.
on this so we get it sort of centered in between this, if that's okay for everybody.
Joe and Buchar and Matt and Emily are some of
I'll
the
be by
families there.
mine as you'll be
Again,
on
this
yours.
was
Sounds
hopefully
great.
A major announcement. So let's take a listen into the
Okay, thank you, everyone. This will begin our conference. Stand up, Adam. Good afternoon. My name is Joe Peiffer, and I'm with the firm of Peiffer, Wolf, Carr, and Kane. I'm here today to open this news conference organized by the families of the UH embryo disaster. Let me begin by welcoming the reporters in the room and those joining us on the phone. You will hear first from me, and then my partner Adam Wolf, and then from Bobby DiCello of DiCello Levitt. And then you will hear from two University Hospital victim families, Joe and Kim Buchar of Geauga County, and Matt and Emily Petit. They are really the reason that we are here today, and I encourage you to listen closely to what they have to say. When the opening statements are concluded, we will take your questions. We'll start out with those of you in the room, and then go to those of you on the phone line, one at a time, please. With that, I will turn it over to my partner, Adam Wolf.
Thank you, Joe. Today, the law firms of Peiffer, Wolf, Carr & Kane, and DiCello Levitt filed numerous lawsuits in federal court and in Geauga County against the university hospitals and data loggers, a company that was supposed to monitor the alarm systems associated with the tanks at university hospitals. University Hospitals has admitted its responsibility for the failures of its tanks. That failure, it has said, should not have happened. The loss suffered by our clients is devastating. University Hospitals has admitted that it cannot give back what was taken away. And what was taken away is the eggs and embryos of our clients and hundreds of people across the country. Those eggs and embryos represented the hopes for having children for hundreds of American families.
Today we file these lawsuits because our clients can't wait any longer for UH to make this right for them. About a year ago, executive leadership issued an apology, but nice words demand action. And these lawsuits are the first step to that action. These families have a strong desire to reveal to UH what happened to their families. Not just what exists in medical records, but what happened in their ordinary lives. Today, these new filings give them that opportunity. Today, these families have agreed to a plan that we believe in, a plan that puts them first, a plan that will require UH to make this right. While we remain open to communicating with UH and confident that a workable resolution can be found, we now shift our focus to the litigation ahead. Everyone who has lost embryos and who has not decided to take legal action should keep in mind that waiting doesn't work. Don't blow this off. This is a time for decisive action to seek justice. The goal is fairness. The families need to be respected and recognized by UH as people, not numbers. The hope of each family is that this new litigation will require UH to fully compensate them for the harms and losses these families have suffered. And finally, these clients feel that the DiCello Levitt law firm and the Peiffer Wolf law firm are ready to make this right. We have the right plan to get them justice, and we will continue to put them first. Thank you.
So first we'll hear from the Petites in their opening statement.
When all of this happened just about a year ago,
Sorry. Don't be stingy, please move them all.
You guys are all on the same team, so.
No, not exactly.
I get it.
when all of this happened just about a year ago, it was the most devastating loss that we have ever felt. It was a loss that was felt throughout our entire family, not just by Matt and I. It went to our son, who will never have a sibling, our parents, who will never be grandparents again, our siblings, who will never have the chance to be aunt and uncles again. But when everything happened, we thought, okay, we've hit rock bottom. From here, we will come together as a family, and we will pick ourselves up and we will move forward. But not with University Hospitals. University Hospitals has shown us time and time again, the worst is always yet to come. They devastated us by telling us that we have lost something that can never be replaced. And then Mother's Day weekend, to get the hearing that they were filing to dismiss these lawsuits. That was heartbreaking for us. The other actions that they have taken us out at the knees time and time again. And we have been unable to heal as a family because of university hospitals. Mr. Zenti once said, "We failed our patients." No, Mr. Zenti, you have continued to fail us time and time again.
Sure. For the, Matt, did you have anything to add, or? Okay. Kim or Joe, would you like to go ahead?
Let's move the mics again.
Yeah, let's
guys.
move the mics again for everyone so they can hear. Here, I'll help you. I don't know, man. Here we go. Is that good for you guys? Okay, great.
Very similar to their reaction was the reaction that we had. It's the last thing you anticipate happening is getting that call saying that your embryos are gone. You put all this faith into a hospital system in hopes that they're going to protect any possibility you have of growing your family. And that decision was taken away from us. There's to have this go on as long as it has been very difficult. It continues to bring up emotions over and over and over again. It doesn't allow us to heal. It doesn't allow our children to heal. It doesn't allow the family as a whole to heal. It didn't just affect Joe and I. It affected everybody. It affected my sisters, our children, my parents. They all suffer as we do. And I come from a family of all girls. So there was always that potential of possibly having a boy in the family. That has been taken away from us. And it's hard to heal. And this has gone on so long. The healing process isn't able to happen at this point. And it's difficult. Do you have anything?
Now we're going to move to the question and answer portion of the proceedings. First, we're going to take questions from folks in the room, and then ultimately we're going to take questions from people on the phone. The operator, I think, has some instructions as to how to get in the queue to ask a question on the phone. I'd ask that everyone in the room please just ask one question at a time so that we don't have a lot of crosstalk or anything of that nature. So with that, if you have any questions, whoever would like to go.
What you all tell us, this has been difficult and destroy your hopes. Can you tell us why you put your eggs on hold?
Our son is 3. So when we first went through IVF and we knew that we had embryos to put into storage, we didn't feel we had to rush things. We felt that we could enjoy Mason's first year. We could enjoy life with our son, and we could make our timetable for expanding our family. And we truly believed that our embryos were in safekeeping. We were never given 1 ounce to feel that they weren't safe.
That's the one thing that the fertility treatment takes. When you go through fertility treatment, everything becomes more of planning instead of life happening. So we had a chance to do some things, like Emily said, with our son Mason. We took him to Disney World this summer. We did some things before we were ready to grow our family some more. And we had a plan. We just thought that everything was safe.
And Emily, same question to you.
Kim.
Kim, I'm so sorry. Yep, Kim and Joe.
When this all happened, our daughter at that point was 1.5 years. We have a gap in ages between our first one, and we hadn't made the final decision. We assumed that those embryos were safe. You know, it's a large hospital system. You entrust them with that potential, and that they're going to keep those embryos safe for when we're ready to have another child.
Why did you all decide to file now? I'm sorry. Because this happened, earlier last year.
This has been a very long process, a process that I don't feel should have gone this long, and I feel that they don't want to hear the reality of it, what it has done to families. It has been devastating, and they don't want to see the real life and what it's done to so many people out there, not just the 4 of us, but there's a lot of people out there suffering.
Share with me a little bit more about the alarm company. I understand they're now involved. You guys are filing lawsuits against them as well. What did the alarm company fail to do? Because I know in the past, UH has said that the alarm had been turned off at one point, and there were some questions about that.
Correct. What we know from the public record is that Data Loggers is the company that was supposed to monitor the remote alarm. Just like in your house, let's say, there's an alarm that when it goes off, you hear it inside the house. And then there's a remote alarm in case you're not there. So there's an extra layer of protection. Here, what we know is that the alarm had been turned off. And moreover, what we know from the public record is that university hospitals hadn't even tested that alarm in a period of approximately 1 year before this incident.
So what is the standard procedure to dealing with this kind of a freezer? What's the, I'm not familiar with the regular procedures are. Is it required to be tested?
We expect that the litigation that we're going to be following through here on will get those answers. Fact-specific questions relating to the details of this specific litigation haven't been forthcoming because we've just filed a lawsuit. So we're waiting to get to the bottom of that.
It sounds like you prosecute, or you filed other lawsuits. You've been on the prosecution side of other cases similar to this one. So in those cases, can you explain what procedures are acceptable in a situation like
We
this?
are not going to be commenting at all about anything happening in any other venues or jurisdictions.
I just, from your knowledge of, it sounds like this is one of your specialties.
Any knowledge that we have will be shared with our clients and we'll use in the litigation going forward, keeping in line with what the courts have already stated.
I will say one other thing, which is that IVF centers, university hospitals included, advertises that they can secure people's eggs and embryos. That obviously didn't happen here, and UH admitted that it failed to ensure that it was properly secured.
You said UH had tested the alarm in a year since the incident, or you're saying before?
For 1 year prior to the incident.
So these are these 2 cases separate, one in federal and one in Geauga County Common Pleas?
We filed in 2 different locations. The reason for filing in federal court is we have plaintiffs that are living in different states. And the law makes clear what the options are in those situations and what the best way to handle that is. Beyond that, I won't comment because there's some strategy involved as well. But for the state cases, the state case filed in Geauga County, we know that Data Loggers resides there, and so we filed in that county as well.
Can you tell us how many families you filed lawsuits on behalf of?
Well, the exact number is in the tens, put it that way. I haven't counted them recently. I know the addition of these particular lawsuits goes to the hundreds that are currently pending.
Why in Geauga and not, with the rest of the cases in Cuyahoga?
We are not going to be making any comments today in any way, shape, or form about Cuyahoga County.
As you may know, we're under a gag order.
Obviously.
So go ahead, honey.
Obviously, your embryos got destroyed. What else was it that you said upset you most about how UH handled your situation?
It's just the continued betrayal. I feel that they have stonewalled us, and they have it's been a constant betrayal. I think that's the best way that I can put it. We entrusted them with the most important, precious part of our lives. As parents, the most precious part of our lives is our children. Mason is the center of our world. And for us, those embryos that we were storing there were just as precious. And they betrayed that trust.
So what would you like to see happen?
They need to be held accountable. They definitely need to be held accountable so this does not happen again. So lives aren't just devastated the way they've been. And if this helps to make that happen, then that's what I hope for it.
We never want another family, husband and wife, to sit where we are sitting right now. The IVF industry is an amazing and wonderful industry. It gave us our son. But you shouldn't go into IVF wondering, is the storage tank going to fail? Is there a chance that I'm going to lose our eggs and embryos that we have stored? Those are thoughts that shouldn't go through your head. Those are thoughts that you should hand off to the medical professionals that you are entrusting with your care. That shouldn't be your concern when you lay your head on the pillow at night of, hope the storage tank that I have my embryos in is doing okay. It shouldn't be on us. It should have been on them.
This is for the attorneys. You kind of addressed this, the hospital putting up roadblock after roadblock. What are your thoughts about that and what's going on here?
I have no comments about opposing counsel to any of the litigation that's happened already. I can tell you that we remain hopeful that there will be ongoing communications. I want to make this very clear, that there are good men and women at UH that are working right now as we speak, that are doing good work helping people. Our conversation is with the executive leadership of UH. Our conversation is with those who know how to hear our clients and respond to their needs. And I'm going to just say what was said on the public record. There was an apology made, and now it's time for action.
How is it you're speaking today, given the gag order?
Well, we've analyzed the gag order. We've talked about the cases that these clients have. We recognize that these lawsuits are unique and individual. This is not about any other lawsuit in any other place of the world. This is their most important event. And this most important event for this family and the Buchar family as well is something that we're going to work very hard to make meaningful.
And I will say one more time that we are permitted, so UH got this gag order. They were the ones who sought the gag order. One of the exceptions is that you can discuss information that's in the public record. And that's what we are doing.
For the attorneys, related to data loggers, I just want a little bit more clarification on where the lawsuit is alleging the failure was. What was the failure on data loggers' part, just so I can have a better understanding of that and why they're being sued now?
Sure. As we make clear in our complaints, and we outline this in the complaints, data loggers, one task with regard to these tanks was to make sure that the remote alarms were working so that an incident like this would never happen. That alarm, it turns out, was turned off. They failed at that task.
For people that haven't gone through the process of IVF like you have, is there any hopes that you might be able to go through the process again?
Taking into account everything that we have been through in the last year, to even put that thought on the table for us, it's a really hard question, and it's really difficult.
For someone who hasn't gone through it, some people may wonder, well, is there an opportunity that maybe you might be able to do this in the future?
For other people, I would recommend it. It's an amazing process. It's amazing how life can come from it. It really is. But like Emily said, it's difficult, and so many people don't know what you go through, that process. It is not an easy process. It's painful, it's emotional, and there's a lot that goes along with it. You have to make a commitment to go through this process, and it is not easy. It's difficult for us as mothers. It's difficult for the fathers as well, in a different way. But I would recommend it to anybody because it's a miracle. It is.
Don't lose hope in the industry, but hold the hospitals accountable and make sure that they are doing their jobs. It's not the field of IVF that failed us.
Our issues aren't with the IVF procedure. Our issue is with the way university hospitals chose to conduct themselves. I would recommend, and anyone that has come to us, friends, family, seeking advice, struggling to conceive, we've been a resource to them. I would recommend it to anyone. It gave us our son, something that we never thought we'd be able to have.
So both of your children were conceived from IVF?
One was. The other one.
You have two?
We have two.
Two girls.
Two girls. The first one, we did have to go through fertility, but it was through another procedure. But our second one, we had to go through IVF.
Our son was conceived through IVF. Yes.
And it's not an easy process to go through, right? There's a lot that goes. It's not just a matter of going and getting more eggs. I mean,
as Kib's husband, I can't ask her to go through that process again because the amount of chemicals and things that go on to make this possible, and when you think it's already been handled and been done, to ask us to do it again because of a mistake like this, I can't ask her to do that again.
From a mother's standpoint, yes, it's emotional. There's a financial aspect to it, but you're giving yourself shots, multiple shots a day, twice a day. At one point you're at two, 3 shots in the morning, 2 shots in the evening. That plays with you emotionally and physically. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's hard. It's absolutely hard. And, as the father, they have to deal with it as well. It's being there for the wife that is going through all of this.
And when it comes down to it, we did this once. We had 4 embryos stored with university hospitals. It shouldn't be a question of, will I go through it again or can I go through it again? We shouldn't have to go through it again. We should not have to. You broke our trust and destroyed something that was so precious to us. We could go through it 50 times. You will never give us back what we lost. Never.
The decision that was there was taken away.
Yeah, for us, we had 10 embryos in storage, and it's just not, I can't comprehend how you don't take actions to safeguard losing them all at once. It just doesn't make any sense.
Bobby and Adam, I thought we had been led to believe by UH that they were responsible for monitoring and checking the alarms, and that they manually turned off the alarms. Was Data Loggers like a contractor who was working for UH, or how? I don't understand the connection.
So the precise nature of that relationship will be found out through the litigation as we go forward. I don't have any details to answer that very detailed question, but I can tell you that what we're very hopeful about, that which is in the record, I'll have my partner here address, but what we want to do is make sure that we understand the nuances of how that happened. I can tell you this, so far the answers have been incomplete at best.
And what about the manufacturers of the freezers? They're not at fault?
Adam?
Because they were, they weren't working right. That's where they were manually, pouring the liquids into them, and they shouldn't have been doing that. But there were problems with the freezers also. Are they not going to be a defendant in this case?
Thus far, the only parties we have sued are university hospitals and data loggers. University hospitals, at the very beginning, took responsibility for what happened.
Maybe go to the phone questions, and we can come back in the room if there's any follow-ons. Operator, do you want to instruct everyone on the phone, if you have not already, as to how to ask a question?
Sure. For all parties on the phone, if you would like to ask a question, you may press star then 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to remove yourself from the queue, you may do so by pressing star, then 2. Again, it is star 1 if you would like to ask a question. And we'll pause a moment to gather questions from the telephone audience. And at this time, we are not showing any parties on the phone wishing to ask a question. We do have one party that just came in, if I can introduce them. It is from Jessica Ravitz of CNN Digital. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi, yes. The audio is a little hard over the phone, so there's some spellings of names and, data logger and details that I may have not caught. Is it possible to get copies of the complaint?
Yes, we will have copies of the complaint. I think we have some down here for the people that are present, and we can electronically transmit copies to anyone who would like them.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. The audio.
And we have.
Go ahead. Sorry. The audio recording will also be put up on our various websites later on today if there's any confusion from that. Go ahead. Sorry, operator.
I'm sorry. And we have a question from Rich Gardella of NBC. Please go ahead.
Thank you. You had mentioned that there were hundreds of lawsuits now. Can you confirm the total number of lawsuits or the ballpark of that? Several months ago it was, I think, around 70.
No, I said there are hundreds of, if I said lawsuits, I meant families involved. The number of lawsuits, I don't have that number right now.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard different numbers. I heard like 1,000 cases have been filed versus hundreds.
I don't have that data.
We don't know about the cases.
Okay.
But to clarify, your particular law firm is handling in the tens, you said,
Correct.
of lawsuits. So somewhere between 10 and 20, would you say?
No, the exact numbers I'd have to get for you, and I'd be happy to provide that. I just don't have it right now.
And that's you guys together?
Well, yeah. So just for the sake of clarity, if I may.
Sure.
So for the sake of clarity, between the two of us, we represent around 100 families. Okay. So that I figured that's kind of what you were getting at. So that's how many people we represent. We have filed cases in. I'm not sure how many. These that's what I'm not sure how many we brought into suit. These are the first suits we filed in Geauga and in federal court.
But it's fair to say around 100.
Suits that would ultimately be filed by us.
Well, but currently.
I just don't know the answer to that to tell you with any. I don't want to say something and then be wrong.
But between the three, between all of your law firm, you said there's about 100 right now.
We had about 100 families that we represent.
Families, okay.
Correct. And then we are suing as where and when we feel like is the best place to get our clients hold UH accountable.
So the news conference here is wrapping up. Just some final formality questions that are being asked. We're going to have a complete wrap up on this coming up in our early newscast at 4, 5, and 6. But the gist of this news conference was to announce yet another round of lawsuits against University Hospital. As you could expect, these attorneys don't represent all of the families that are involved. We know that there are approximately 950 families that had embryos in that tank. We're not sure exactly how many have decided to get attorneys and file lawsuits, but these two individual law firms represent roughly 100 of the families. So another round of lawsuits have been filed in federal court and in Geauga County against the manufacturer of the alarm that we know was turned off. So nothing I would say is groundbreaking or earth-shattering in this case. There's not been a resolution to any of this for these families that have gone through this heartache. Tremendous heartache that we heard from the two women, the two couples that are in that news conference, that they had put their trust in UH and that trust was shattered when they lost their embryos and their eggs. These families had both gone through IVF, in vitro fertilization, to have children before, and that they were waiting to do it again, and they did not get that opportunity. And interesting to hear the heartache is, the grief is so much that for the two of them to consider doing it again, according to what they said, is not an option. We're going to wrap this up This has been Cleveland 19 News coverage of a new round of lawsuits being issued against university hospitals. Again, we're going to have much more on this coming up in our early newscasts. I'm Dan DeRose, and this has been a Cleveland 19 News breaking news segment.